what it's been like so far. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, probably no more than 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll just go from there.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, so last few years leading up to your introduction of infinite banking or the money multiplier, what was life like for you both as a real estate investor and as a person? If you could just give us a glimpse of your money story pre-money multiplier.
So going back about 5 years, I actually did a bankruptcy. I was down to like $600 to my name. So that was like the low point where I was able to kind of catapult from. And then I started doing better at work, started saving a little bit more money, met my wife, and together the dual income really helped us save up a good amount of capital to start investing into deals. But our first couple of deals were actually from the equity in our house.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we just took an equity line of credit. We were able to go to 100% of the value. So we basically just took that money, did a couple flips, grew the money, and then just kept saving from there.
That's awesome. So was she into real estate when you first started, or you kind of got into it together?
We met at our job. We worked at Quicken Loans.
Oh.
So I had been there for a long time. She was brand new.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw her and I was like, oh, I gotta go talk to her before anyone else does. So
oh, that's awesome. Okay,
yeah.
so what would you say the big money problem was that you were trying to solve? Funding for real estate?
Yeah, funding for real estate, because we had enough to do renovation on properties, but we realistically didn't have enough to buy the entire property and get around the hard money lender.
Right.
So our first deal that we utilized it was just a smaller deal. So we were able to buy the property, not have any kind of money lender. And then we also had enough to do the renovation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because I know you said that you started initially 100% of your equity and you use that to fund deals. At some point you run out of equity and you don't have any funding left. So that's great. I love it. So Chris and his team, me being part of that team, we come across a lot of skeptics, understandably, with the day and age that we're in. But speaking as an investor who is always looking for the next big thing, tell me, what was your first impression of Chris, the concept, what it could do for you and your family? And were you a skeptic at first, or were you pretty much ready to go when you heard about it?
No, I was 100% skeptical, 100%. And that's like anybody. Like, now that I know about it and I try to tell people about it, I swear it's like, it's deer in headlights. People are like, they don't believe me. And then they try to change the subject. So I was the same way. It's just such a different way of thinking about money and how to use it. So when I first heard about it, didn't think much of it, did more research. And then the more research I did, I found more positives than negatives. And the negatives, I really had to evaluate where those were coming from, if it was a credible source. And a lot of times it wasn't. So that gave me a little bit of confidence, but it took time. I had to really spend a lot of time researching and studying the concept before I felt comfortable doing it.
Yep. Yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't want to do that. They don't want to put in the time
to
research something that they think is too good to be true.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes people are their own worst enemy in that way. But if you do your due diligence, all the facts are out there. You just got to find them and,
100%.
find what's worked for other people.
100%.
So how has your money story changed? How has your life changed since meeting Chris and starting your first privatized banking policy?
I think the biggest thing is like the vision of the future for my daughter. So the way I started the policies was I tested one with her. So I opened one for her that was like $6,000. And I'm thinking, if I put all this money in and I can't get it out, it's not going to make or break me. So I just put that money in. The next day I was able to take it out. So I'm like, wow, okay, it works. So then I funded the other policies, but hers is going to build up until she's 18. So that's 5 more years. I'm going to use it the entire time, but I'm going to show her how to use it as well. So by the time she's 18, she's going to have around, I think it's like $50,000 in there, and the knowledge of how to use it and get all the money back and grow it. So she'll be what would that be, 17 years ahead of me and $50,000 ahead of me. Because when I was 18, I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
I actually had like 7 grand in credit card debt because I got approved for a credit card. No one taught me about credit. So I racked up everything on it.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing, is like seeing the future of what it can do for her and how it's going to change her life, how she's going to continue to build on it. And then my future grandkids, her kids, they'll learn about it, and just generation after generation
Yep.
will be wealthier and wealthier because of the one switch that I did and then instilled it into her.
Yep. That's the legacy that we leave. Absolutely. And that's probably the biggest reason why we do what we do, is just because now we're starting to pass on new knowledge, that knowledge that, you know, when she learns about it, she's not going to have that barrier where she's like, oh, I have to do my due diligence and I have to figure out, you know, is this really legitimate? And she's just going to know because dad did it first, you know,
Yeah.
and that's the legacy you leave her. And then she leaves it to her children. It keeps continuing on forever. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things I think that we can do for our kids. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think the proof's in the pudding, and you know, the fact that someone else has done it is a clear indicator that it's possible.
Yes.
And if that's someone that has done it, you know them personally, that's entirely different. So
yeah,
I wish
absolutely.
that my parents would have known about this.
I know. Hindsight is 2020. They always say. That's totally true for this. Absolutely. So for those who have a policy like yourself, it's pretty clear just how fast it starts working when you implement it the way Chris teaches, the way we teach, as we've learned from Chris as well. So how fast did it take you to start seeing the results from your first policy?
I would say immediately, because it's funny, when we started the first policy, I think it was mine, we took all the money out and then funded the next policy. It was kind of creative. It was a deal that I was partnered with on someone on a flip. They had, I think, 30,000 in it. So all I did is, when I got the proceeds that came to my LLC, instead of paying them back their 30 right away, I asked them, I was like, hey, can I put this into this policy I started? I can get it immediately back out. Then you can get your 30 grand.
Yep.
He was like, yeah, what's it going to be, like an extra week? I'm like, yeah, that's it. So I basically used his 30 grand to put into my policy, took it out, gave it back to him. And now my policy is growing because of that. So that was instant as soon as I started the policy. So that's what I love about it too, is there's so many different ways you can just compound it and just make it grow. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, because it's your own policy, it's your own bank, so you get to customize the way you use it and what it does for you, which is the best part about it.
I've got a buddy who actually is pretty wealthy. He has a business in roofing in Minnesota, and I tell him about this, and it's like he kind of gets it, he kind of doesn't, but then he it always goes to, he's like, you know what? I want to be the bank. I want to have my own bank. And I'm like, I'm like, that's what it is. You are the bank. Like, you just don't have an actual place that someone goes to, but you are the bank. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's probably the most frustrating part about having a policy, is wanting to share it with everybody and nobody gets it yet. They'll all come to it in their own time, just like you did. But right when you're telling them, you just want to be like, oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll jump on board. Let me call Chris. And, you know, it's usually not the case, but everybody comes into it at their own time. It's a little frustrating as a policy owner knowing how it works, right?
Oh my God. I started it, and then I was calling like everyone I knew. I'm like, Mom, you got to start this policy. Dad, you got to start this policy. I called my cousins, and I'll never forget my cousin Melissa. I told her about it, and she was just kind of like, oh, okay, rush me off the phone. And then later that day, she like texted me this novel. She's like, I'm so disappointed. All you think about is money. And like, you know, you didn't ask how I've been. I'm like, I care about you. I'm trying to teach you how to grow your wealth. Like, what?
Yeah, so it's a gift. It really is. And they don't see it that way yet, but they will. They'll eventually come around to it, and they'll know that you are the person that started it all, and they'll come to you and say thank you. So how has your future outlook changed, in your opinion, if you continue to use this policy the way Chris taught you how to use it? What do you see happening in the next few years?
Well, I've already talked to Danielle, my wife, about like what I think we can do by June of next year. So basically another 6-7 months, is through this, we can double our net worth. We tripled it this year. So I'm like, if we just double it, we can double it if we tripled this year, right? So that, and then just reaching higher numbers. Like I actually just joined a mastermind. It's called 8-Figure Mastermind, which
Mhm.
is everyone's goal is to keep each other accountable to get to 8 figures in income.
Wow.
So that's the thing, is like, you can't do that without surrounding yourself around people that are thinking that way, without doing what those successful people do. And that's why I think it's awesome that that I met Chris and I was able to learn from him, because he does this. He's very successful with it.
Mhm.
And you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Do what other people do,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. As Chris always says, your network is your net worth. Exactly.
Mhm.
So yeah, surround yourself with people who've done it and know how to teach you how to do it, and you're golden. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, just like you said.
100%.
So if there was one piece of advice that you could give to someone, usually in your position, an investor who was introduced to the concept, what would you tell them?
I would tell them not to overcomplicate it, because infinite banking can be very complicated when you look at all the ins and outs, and the fact that if you have more access to the money up front, it doesn't grow as fast as if you have less access to it up front, like a teeter totter. The fact that your death benefit goes up at a certain year, like there's so much to it that you could dive into and get overwhelmed.
Yep.
I would just tell them to keep it simple. You can put X amount in, you can get X amount out. Still use it, it still grows. Put it back in, it'll keep growing.
Mhm.
Next year, you put X amount in, you can get even more out. And that amount just keeps going up. So it's just keep it simple and don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah, exactly. So they're happy with the status quo. Hey, maybe it's not for them, but they want more, then absolutely do what you did, and they'll triple their net worth, double it the next year, and then see how it continues thereon. But
Now that you said that out loud, I feel like that's like a pretty crappy goal to have. Like I tripled the net worth this year, and then next year I want to double it. Like what?
that's what I mean.
So
I don't even think you probably expected to triple it the first year, I'm sure. But honestly, it's a really great goal to have. A lot of people don't even, that when they start, their net worth either doesn't exist, it's in the negative, or when as an investor, they don't even, they're thinking that maybe that'll be, a good segue into increasing their net worth, but they're not sure exactly how that's going to work. But the banking system pretty much does it on automation and alone. So then adding that as an investor to whatever investments that you have, the sky's the limit. So I think it's a
and
great.
it's definitely a marathon. It's not a race or like a
Mhm.
sprint, they would say. Another buddy of mine I've been trying to teach this to, he does stocks, right? He'll trade stocks, and he doesn't do it as like a full-time job, but he'll day trade and he'll make a little bit of money. And he was telling me, like, why would I put my money into a policy to make 6% when I can go trade stocks and make 20 to 30? And I was like, yeah, just put it in there first, make 6%, take it out, and then go make 20 to 30. And
Right.
he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, you put it in, it grows. You take it out, it grows. Take it out, grow it somewhere else.
Yeah, earning
You're
twice.
growing it in 2 places.
You got
So
it.
I think that was like his aha moment. He's like, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I love it. This has been great. I think this is going to be a lot of gold nuggets for people who, especially investors. We talk a lot about the debt side of it, but if you don't have debt and you have investment goals of, doubling your money, tripling your money, and creating that wealth and that generational wealth, leaving that legacy, I think this is going to be, a really good way for them to understand how somebody like you, just like them, would do that, and what it means for them. So I appreciate your time. This has been really enlightening. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope you
likewise.
have happy holidays and a wonderful day today.
You too.
Thanks so
Thanks.
much, Devin. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.